Good morning, everyone. Was everybody at the awards ceremony last night? Wasn't that a great ceremony? Fantastic! And a warm welcome to all of our smart city enthusiasts, leaders, and luminaries. I'm Cornelia Levy-Bencheton, principal of CLB Strategic Consulting, an American marketing and communications firm, and we help people realize their dreams. We are beyond thrilled and really honored to have wonderful keynotes and panelist speakers here today with us. They're going to be sharing their thoughts, their insights, and their practical experience, too. Our topic today is data virtualization, big data, cloud, and city platforms. But the track is digital transformation, which is what is happening in the whole world, in our cities, our regions, our towns, our communities, and even in our organizations. We are becoming datafied and digitized. So here's the plan for today. We'll start off with two keynote speakers, extraordinary keynote speakers. Our first one will be Bill Baver, who is pictured up here. He is the vice president, and he works on he will be speaking on accelerating smart, Las Vegas and beyond. Bill will be followed immediately by Edwin Diender, who is the Chief Digital Transformation Officer and Vice President from Huawei. Edwin's speech is on visualizing the universal framework of smart cities via the principle of Rubik's Cube. It's an interesting example and symbol for interoperability. As we all know, a city is a system of systems, and we need interoperability for things to work together. Then we'll wrap up, and with a 15-minute break, we'll be back here when Charbel Aoun, who is the managing director from NVIDIA in AI London, will speak to us and manage a panel discussion of three people. He will introduce them. We live in extraordinary times. We are confronted and somewhat confounded even by a staggering amount of data that we couldn't even imagine only a short few years ago. Coupled with that, we have technologies and tools too numerous to go into right now that promise a world of opportunities, that offer us so much chance for progress, learning, and real good in the world. So I'd like to tell you a little story. When my co-author and I, Mike Barlow, wrote our book, Smart Cities, Smart Future, we interviewed dozens and dozens of people, experts around the world in the smart city ecosystem, data scientists, engineers, hardware, software, mobility, cybersecurity, urban planners, everybody, every type of person and profession from A to Z. I noticed an amazing commonality. What was that? Everyone was working with such passion, really giving of their heart and soul, way beyond what is required, with a passion, with an intensity that was just remarkable. I said to myself, what's going on here? This is really extraordinary. I noticed a universal theme. I'd say a common denominator. And what was that common denominator? What was that universal theme? It was the desire to bring forth a sense of utopia, to create a better world, a smarter world, a greener world, a cleaner world, a more harmonious world, a more fun world, a world where we can have the opportunity to bring up our children and grow old and live and enjoy ourselves. And certainly a world where we can use all of this data and all of the tools and technologies that we have available to us. In fact, we are all creating a contemporary version, a contemporary vision of utopia. In fact, it's what we call le meilleur des mondes possibles, the best of all possible worlds. And I suggest that when we listen to our speakers and our leaders here today, we key into and we tap into how these people and how these companies are making progress in our world and how they are using the structures, the frameworks, the platforms, the data, and the tools and technologies to create le meilleur des mondes possibles, in fact, a smart city. So with that said, Bill, it's all yours.
Thank you, Cornelia. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Good morning. Hopefully, the last day, you still have some energy left here to enjoy the conference as it goes about. What I'm going to talk about is a little bit of the data side. So as Cornelia said in the introduction, the data really is where we think the importance is out there. And really around data, I don't know if you remember the days before the data explosion, but how did information come about? How did people learn about what was going on? You either had patrols going around, people watching things in a different place, communication on the phone. We still have the phone, but there's many other things out there now. And it's really an explosion that is the interconnected digital world, and the levels of data are unprecedented. It's out there, and it really becomes an issue that says, what do we do with everything? The data increase that everybody's seeing, it's into the zettabytes that are just continuing to increase. And that's great. We have more data. We can make decisions. But we really don't know what to do. It's coming from many places. So the problem is siphoning through that data to figure out what is it, where can we get insights, where can we learn about the data stories that really help us make our decisions to make the world better. As Cornelia said, we want a better world. We want things to be better in cities and everywhere. So how do you really work through with it? Really, if you're an organizer out there that you have to look at it, sometimes this is how you feel, is I don't know what to do. What is most important? And really bring it back to what is most important for the citizens and for society as we go through that. How do you figure that out? So we contend, and I think a lot of people are starting to see, you need some sort of data platform to deal with it. But rather than just about the data, what is it you're trying to do? What if you had a park and you say, is the park clean today? How did people find that out in the past? They would go out and they would run by the park every one day a week, be it a Monday, a Tuesday, whatever, and they'd clean it up. But what if there was an event right after that day happened? The citizens don't have a nice park. They can't enjoy it. What if people are climbing on signs that you don't even know about and they're trying to get them down? Is that okay? Is that the way it should be? The way people learned about that was seeing it or getting a phone call or getting a 911 call to go do something about it. But what if you knew that ahead of time? That's really the data we're starting to get with a lot of the sensors that are out there and the ability. And really, is it safe for the citizens? Can the citizens enjoy it? So as you get all this data, how can you improve the quality of life for the citizens? How can you identify the things that there are maybe safety concerns or crowd concerns out there before you get a call that something bad has happened or you need to address something? How do you do that? When you look at vehicles out there, there's a lot of things going on with vehicle locations. You have road construction going on. How do you deal with that ahead of time? How do you deal with it to say, can we avoid some of these construction things out there, the traffic? I mean, everybody here, when you leave here and you try to go back to your hotel, there's a lot of traffic out there. What if you could make that a little better by going different routes? Everybody has, their Waze, their Google, their different things to look at. But what if you could help move the traffic a different way and you knew that, and the city officials could rather than closing all these roads, know ahead of time what was going to happen? How can you avoid accidents that are going on? These are questions the city asks, And entities ask, rather than, I got all this data, what do I do with it? They want to solve problems. So if you turn it into what are you trying to solve, that's important. What if you had citizens starting to come in that were setting up encampments? We have, refugees moving into cities. We have homelessness in certain parts where they start encampments. What if the city knew about that before it got out of hand, and they could send their resources over to help the citizens, that they can get what they need to become better? Today, a lot of that comes about by just a phone call or a news report or something like that. What if the citizens had better services? So that's really all about data that you can capture with things out there today. But what do you do with it? How do you siphon through it to figure it out? So we contend that there's a lot of ways that you need to do that. So what if a city could learn about people that are climbing on things ahead of time before they fall? So the key is, Las Vegas has a sign here in the middle of town, and you don't want to be this person climbing up here where they see it, because you could get hurt, you could damage the sign. And the police today, the way they find out about it is somebody calls after there's an accident. But what if they knew about this, and when that was going on, they could get a message that says, hey, please get down. We have technology that does that, so rather than just worry about technology and data, what if the technology said, hey, please get down, don't climb on the sign, don't hurt yourself? By about the third time, if they do it and they don't get down, the police can look in and say, hey, is something wrong? That we have technology to do. So turn it into what is the story you're trying to get. What if they have sections of the city that cars come in and they typically go the wrong way? Could we find out about it, how often this happens? Yeah, we have a city that's doing that. They turn this around, they learn, here comes a car, it just turns around, it almost hits a person once they know it, another car comes up and almost hits it. What if you could help that situation? How often does that happen? So a lot of these things happen and go on and you don't even know it. The city doesn't know it until there's an accident, and when they have the accident, that's what's going to happen that says, now we have an issue we have to deal with. We have situations we have to recover from, we expend resources to go out there and do it. Another one that's going on, what if a city could help move citizens around, get crowds? So can you monitor crowds that are going on, and all of a sudden they start to swell more than you knew? In Barcelona here itself, as they're going on, they've had a lot of demonstrations lately. What if you could learn about those demonstrations going on before you get a report about it? What if you could see they're starting to build up? What if you watched and monitored social media and saw the crowd starting to go forward, and you help address that right away? That's what a city needs to do with the data, rather than just say, I'm getting bombarded with it. So if they turn it into a data story, you can make this a life that improves for the citizens, and you can help them understand better how to move around the city. So another one is parks. What if you actually have a park, and you know it's being used, or you know it's not? So is the park set up at one point where it was set up for people to come in and enjoy a relaxing time, or is it now set up for families that are going on? Is it being used? Is it being used for that event? If you had a family event and now it becomes, the families have grown and it should be more where there's picnic areas. You can monitor that, and the city ahead of time can make life better for the citizens out there. So that's really what we need to do as a society to help people with all this data that starts to come in. And how can we do that to get better? So we contend that there needs to be a smart world and a smart technology built on a smart data platform. And the idea is that data that comes in, it's different if you're the city that's looking at it, if you're a retail shop, if you're a hospital. Same data, you just want to look at it different. That's how you have to contextualize. And the way to do that is around a smart data platform. Our opinion is that if you have that data platform, you can then turn it into things that give you a data story for the area you're looking at, but it's the same data. And you contextualize it as you go. So we've worked, but now you have the data that comes in, and the concept here is you need a way to take this maze of data that comes different ways and start to put it into some organized format. So if you can get it into an organized format, and you can get a way to take it, now you can give data visualization for it. And the idea being, how do you catalog it and how do you curate it to get in a way that makes it valuable rather than just this noise of data? So that's really the part that we have to do as technologists, as leaders, as innovators out there to help people figure out what to do with that data story so they can now make decisions and they can improve life and they can improve operations. So we've done this, NTT and Dell Technologies have done this with one city, the city of Las Vegas, to start from. And it really is around a way that they've looked at how to help the citizens by creating more safety, how to get better park usage, and how to get better traffic management, and how to get better crowd control. That's where they started. And they started in one section of the city as they worked, and now they've expanded it across the city. And now they're even expanding it into a regional concept that they're saying, how do we help the region and make it more than just one city, one location? And the state of Nevada is looking at to become a smart state with that concept to move to different cities around the state. So that's one way to go do it. And it really helped not just the citizens, but it helps the operations of the city as well. It helps the operations around situational awareness. What is that? So that park incident that I showed earlier, what if the police officer didn't know that there was a situation going on? They just were told to go there because something was happening. The police officer comes, and they don't know what they're getting into. They just know somebody is damaging a sign or they're climbing on a sign. They're going to be tense in a way that they may not have to be. If they could go ahead and look ahead of time and see what's going on, now they come in and say, all right, this is late at night, it's Las Vegas, it's 2, 3 in the morning. We just have to deal with somebody that needs to get home. If they come in a different way and the people start reacting a different way and they don't know that, it could turn to a situation that's not good. That's situational awareness in that environment. What if they had the crowd there and you knew what the crowd was swelling, but you also knew that there was social media saying this was a gathering, a demonstration, and people are arguing on one area or another. Now they know to come in with a different framework as they come. They know they have to maybe split groups up into 2 groups as they go. You know, we're in Europe, you know, football's a big thing. You know, you go to certain parts, if you get the competing teams together, you need to split them up somehow, the fans for those teams. If they knew that as it's going on, that's an important part for the police to know. They also then don't have to send their people out there. The example of the person climbing up on the sign, if the announcement could come out, please don't climb, and the person gets down, now you don't have to send a police officer out there or some official to say what's going on. They just, you made them more efficient. They could handle more of an area by watching that. And the last is the better use of the services, the park. If you knew what was going on with the park and you saw it was dirty, you could use it. If you knew the park was being not used for the climbing equipment, the playground equipment, you could change that out. Citizens get better experience with the park. Those are all the things that we're doing in Las Vegas and other places around the world where you start really using the data for your story that you're going after. And it's really built on a platform. So for us there, with our partner Dell Technologies, we looked at a platform that said, how do we take structured and unstructured and operational data, have a foundation to look at organizing the data in a way and moving the data around and getting it then into a data analysis phase that's a common data object that somehow standardizes it for our use so where you can then do the data scientist works to create services that then can be visualized. And that's what we did in Las Vegas. We said, all right, let's start in a way to do that and show everything and create some smart decisions and smart solutions. And that's great, and they're expanding, and that's the platform that we worked on. But there's other things, other places that are really more and similar to a city. What if you could look at a stadium? And the stadium's like a mini city at places and the entertainment district around it. What if you looked at manufacturing facilities or hospitals? How do you do that? Well, if you have a common data platform and you look at it the same way, that it's just data coming in and data stories, we actually think it's the same picture. It's the same architecture that you go about. Same level of getting new structured and unstructured data. You just create new data platform services. You change the story. You change the story for the new person out there, the new group out there that you're looking at. And that's what we've been doing at NTT. And we said, you know, we're accelerating smart because what we're looking at is cities are smart already. They're gathering data. How do they manage through it? That's what we're looking to do, is we're helping them manage through it and get to the true data story of what they're trying to solve. Not just say it's an IT, it's a data problem, it's, you know, that's that group over there. You talk to the real users of what they're trying to change in the city, how they're trying to help their citizens, how they're trying to improve operations. And not only that then, how can you go to other industries as we all look to go further? So that's where we work at NTT. We look at that in that light and we say that data platform that we can do and create, that helps us all as we go forward into many areas. So the next part of, though, is for cities, how do you make this sustainable? You walk the floor out there, there's a lot of really cool innovations out there. But how do they scale? How do they become sustainable? That's where cities have to take that jump, and that's where Cornelia said at the beginning, you know, how do you look at that smart future, the technology of the future? If we don't start to help cities, to help organizations start to figure out how to go and take from situational awareness to a force multiplier, that helps operations. You can do economic development, that helps operations. But how can they use that in a way to monetize whatever they're doing in a format that says how can they now pay for those systems and how can they expand that technology and go further? And it's not out there in selling data and say sell private data, but that data can be monetized. In our view, the city owns all that data. It's all the city data. And we as technologists have to help them figure out what monetization means in an anonymized way so that they're not out there, quote, selling it. What they're doing is they're making it valuable. They're increasing economic development that turn it back into money for the city. And that's how they can then turn it around and give it back to more technology to get life better for the city and better for the citizens. Because it has to turn back to the citizens or else it's just a toy out there. So we have a view about that. We think that it's open architecture. Our platform's set in a way that says the cities already have invested a lot of time and money in sensors, in other data capturing techniques. Let's leverage it. Don't make them rip it out and put new things in. Just build on top of what they have. As new things start to come about, let them replace it with new things that are better. Some of these things out here, these data collection devices that you see, they're awesome. How can we use that as we go? How can you do it in a modular way that you say, you know, plug and play? They want to start small? Start small. You want to grow? Expand a platform that's production. How can you do it rapidly? Because the city needs to see return on investment. If they don't see a return, they can't go further. They can't get city council to approve it. So you've got to do those things. How can you make sure that they have the IP they need to be able to work with the city, to work with other cities around it? How can they maintain and go that way? And how can they do it in a way that says it's not this one huge, enormous price? How can they do it over time that stays price competitive to them and for them to say, how can they start showing the return? So it's really, in our opinion, that data platform goes back to all about the data. Look at the stories for the city. Look at the stories they're trying to solve. And then how can you turn that into light that says, this is the way we need to go in the future. So hopefully that gives you an insight about what we're thinking about at NTT. I really thank you for your time here, and hopefully it gives you a sense of turn data into stories for the customer, turn data into stories for the various groups that are out there to make life better for the citizen and the operations that are out there. So thank you. And are you going to introduce Edwin, or? All right, Edwin's next here from Huawei. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks. Where did you get the pointer? Is it, where did you put the pointer? I got the pointer. And does it go automatic? Here I am. Nothing happens. You know, dream it possible is one of the payoffs that Huawei used when we first introduced our smartphones a couple of years ago. Dream it possible. You got me daydreaming on the part where these guys were climbing the Las Vegas sign. Is there really a voice that then says that you shouldn't climb it? There is? It reminds me of a joke. So before I present and before my presentation comes, it's very short. It's a very small joke, very short joke. You can tell this to your kids. It's not a dirty joke. There's a guy who wants to go ice fishing. So he finds a nice piece of ice and he knocks the ice and he thinks this is a good spot. So he wants to start song and out comes this voice. Not in Las Vegas, but out comes this voice, and this voice says, "There is no fish under the ice." And the guy gets scared and thinks, what is going on? So he looks up, packs up his equipment, goes down a little further, knocks the ice again, thinks this is probably a better spot. Second voice comes out, "There is no fish under the ice." This voice in Las Vegas. Is this you, God? No, I'm the ice rink master. Anyways. My name is Edwin Diender. I'm the Chief Digital Transformation Officer and I'm the Vice President for Government and Public Sector in Huawei Enterprise. That is a massive title. And the only thing I do is I help our customers and our partners with their digital journey. And I've been doing this for about 11, 12 years. Not in Huawei, but I've been on the path for digital transformation for about 11, 12 years. And when I speak to customers, when I speak to governments, when I speak to agencies, when I speak to partners, they usually come down to, I get server, I get storage, I get data centers, I understand virtualization, I understand if I wrap it all up and if I put it together, you could say this is a platform. As Bill was presenting, it has a lot of technicalities. So I'd like to zoom into a part where perhaps the technicalities do not really matter. I think what is most important for cities, predominantly for city managers, which I think is the new title of a mayor, and his city council workers are his management team. Sometimes executive management team, or straightforward, or down to, very down to earth. But nevertheless, the principle of a smart city, a platform that is capable of linking and integrating programs and initiatives that will help move a city higher up the value chain. In this idea, then a platform. And what does that do? In 1974, Erno Rubik, who is a mathematician and a professor at an Hungarian university, challenged his classmates, his students, by thinking about a structure that is built up with pieces, and these pieces can move independently without breaking up the structure. And this is a very hard mathematical problem to nail down. And he found a principle for it. He used the universal framework, which is almost like a wireframe, and he positioned different pieces, different building blocks within that wireframe. He connected them together, and he found out that they can actually move independently without breaking the structure. I think this is a key example how a universal framework, which is worldwide, I think this is what the universe turns around on this same framework. And I think it's very applicable for digital transformation, and specifically to visualize all these building blocks that have to work together, that are today in so many silos, that don't speak to each other. In the example of a public safety example where Bill was referring to, this is where someone climbs a sign in Las Vegas, falls off, breaks a leg, someone calls 911, and then 911 needs to pick up the phone, right? Who are you? Well, in my case, I'm Edwin. Where are you? I'm at a Las Vegas sign. Good. Where exactly? Are you behind it? Are you in front of it? Are you to the left of it? To the right of it? Where is your position? And what are you calling me for anyway? And then after all of this, someone writes it all down, thanks me for calling, and calls someone else. Very, very disconnected. Silos, no information sharing. So I think it is important to think about a framework that we can visualize by the principle of Rubik's Cube. And the principle of Rubik's Cube, as it says, is a structure that has pieces that can move independently without falling apart or breaking the structure. An intelligent city framework. This is what it does. It's building up with animation, so that's why I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at the slide to see where we are. An intelligent city framework, visualized as a cube. Each building block within this cube has its unique characteristic. This could be, from a vertical point of view, first-line responders, police, fire, traffic department, or what have you. This could also be something else. In 2016, in this room, really this room, I introduced the concept of a brain and the nervous system of a smart city, for a smart city. We brought this together in what we call an intelligent operations center. Visualized as one of the core building blocks in the example of a Rubik's Cube, the brain and the nervous system could be the core and centerpieces of such a framework, of such a building block, of such a cube. And another part that goes along with it is, of course, and Bill mentioned that as well, for safety. For Huawei, safe city are the cornerstones of a smart city foundation. If an area or a region is not safe and not secure, it does not make sense to take your taxpayers' money and to improve the mobile network for mobile banking, like they did in Kenya 7 years ago. Government of Kenya said, we are losing money on our GDP because tourists are not coming to Kenya, because crime is pretty high up. People are being robbed, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 of cash being robbed. So what do? We're going to see if we can move into the world of mobile banking. You're going to use your mobile phone for bank transactions. In order to do this, the mobile network had to be upgraded. And the only thing what that does, it supports the financial industry. Financial industry is very happy. But you as a tourist, probably you're not. You won't bring $2,000, $3,000 in your pocket to Kenya, I guess. What you would bring is your phone. But still you would be robbed. Your $200 or $300 phone would be robbed. So you still would not go to Kenya as a tourist. You don't want to be robbed. It's not about the value, it's about being robbed. So in the discussion and in the conversation of thinking about a platform that can link and integrate different services, we said maybe it's a good first step going forward by looking into the element of public safety and link it to tourists. What can we do to reduce crime and keep that sustainable so crime keeps continuing to go down, where tourists then are able to come in? And then, yes, of course, use the mobile network for mobile payment, but also use the mobile network for other stuff, as we do now. Booking.com, TripAdvisor, and what have you are all there. But Safe City, as a cornerstone of a smart city foundation, is one of the examples where a building block, uniquely on its own, has its own characteristic. It can move independently in this framework without breaking the framework. So Safe City as a cornerstone. Other part sits with ecosystems. Not a straightforward partnership anymore. In digital transformation, in smart city construction, everything is a path and horizontal. No more verticals, no more silos. But also no more partners, as we know today. A partner that buys technology at a certain price, adds a markup, and that's the sales price for you. A partnership as a stakeholder, an eco-partner. Ecosystems, just like the Amazon is an ecosystem of flora and fauna, it creates value by itself, because also the industry needs to move higher up the value chain, not just the city that we do it for. So support pieces are just as much an example of building blocks in this framework for smart cities by following the principle of a Rubik's Cube. And what does that do already now? So if we add this all up, then we can clearly see that the digital age has not even arrived. We're already embarked on this. We're moving up, and we're moving up fast. And what's it doing? It's providing a sustainable and new growth model. It creates new business. That's really what it does. What every investment should do. It should create new jobs. Other part, empowering, intelligent city plus. The whole is more than the sum of its parts. 1 + 1 is 5 is what Huawei brings to Smart City Expo World Congress this year. One platform, one intelligent operations center, and a wide array of application partners to support us in the different scenarios. Similar to how Bill presented that from NTT and from Dell. Move in higher up the value chain. New technologies. Other example sits with environmental protection. United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The things we do have to be sustainable. No more projects. A project has a clear beginning and a clear ending, has a budget, and usually at the end of the budget there's a little more project left. But still it's a silo. It cannot be the case that we move in a stop and go motion, one project after the other. The amount of customers that are asking, can you support me tomorrow? And can we do a smart city project? Probably didn't get the point what smart cities really should provide. It is a journey, a platform that can link, that must link programs and initiatives that will help your city move higher up the value chain. This is not a project. This is a vision. This is an idea that you have to embrace. This is where sustainable development comes in. Why do you do a smart city? Because for the people who live in it. That's why you're elected as a city mayor, for example. So sustainable development. Tech for all is a principle that Huawei provides when it comes to this. Empowering urban development and urban safety. This is where Huawei now moves into a little bit more technical. Underneath, let's say under the hood of this car, this supercar, is a huge engine that has different capabilities combined. And this could be from anybody and everybody, or it could be from only one. The key principle is that it supports programs and initiatives to be put in place, again, that will help move a city higher up the value chain in a shorter time. And when we think about what the digital platform is, the digital platform as a principle is what I've tried to explain earlier. The digital platform from a technical point of view has capabilities that are within the square in the screen behind me. So the Internet of Things, big data analytics, AI, not artificial. There's nothing artificial about intelligence. Last year we said there is a platform that we can put in place, and this platform supports smart city construction. It provides you with the ability to create a brain and a nervous system for smart cities. And the AI inside is waiting to be activated. It's like the brain of a child almost, full of potential, waiting to learn, waiting to fall down, learn from the mistakes and pick itself up again and move forward, learn as we go along. So activate intelligence is what last year AI meant in the platform delivery that Huawei provides. This year, we're embarking on a journey where we're actually able to say, we have so many learning points in our global footprint already in this domain that we're actually able to advance on intelligence. But still, it is AI. Examples of technology capabilities within such a platform. And again, the eco-partners, there is no such thing as a one-off, and there is no such thing as a one vendor, one technology, one partner, one integrator, one city, and that's it. It is all of us. It's all of you. It is me as a tourist, not as a tourist now. I'm a presenter here in Barcelona, but at the end of my presentation, at the end of this morning, I will enjoy, as a tourist, the beautiful city of Barcelona in the afternoon. So my role changes in this day already. My role also changed this morning when I woke up after breakfast and drove with the metro to here. I became a traveler. I'm traveling through a city, and this city supports it very well. I am supported by an ecosystem of services, of partnerships, of building blocks that move independently without breaking this structure and supporting me as a person traveling through in my different roles in Barcelona. So ecosystems for a better partnership tomorrow. We do this already for a long, long time. Every year when we are here at Smart City Expo World Congress, we try to explain what we did last year. We try to provide what we do now, and we try to give you a bit of a heads up on where we think we should go for next year. And we provide you with some cases that already are on this process, that already do what we think is interesting to be done. And they are award-winning. Last night at the award ceremony for Smart City Expo World Congress, also 2 cases from Huawei, where Huawei was one of the supporting partners, won. This is an example where digital transformation, another example where the visualization of building blocks in a framework that can move independently without breaking this framework allows us to move higher up the value chain. Award-winning cases. Why do we do this? For people. Why do city managers have to do this? For the people living and passing through their city. Why is this also important? As a city, you need to advertise yourself. If you're looking for foreign investors that do not want to come to your city now, for whatever reason, embarking on the journey of digital transformation creates more value, allows you to be more visible, and brings foreign investors faster to your table as you would probably need it. Last but not least, forward-looking. What to do first. There are some steps that you can actually take regardless of what framework you would follow. And it starts with a baseline, the foundation, of which Safe City is a cornerstone of a smart city foundation. So set up multi-level strategies, new technologies, multi-layer, and all the building blocks combined. Stakeholders is the word that we look for, not shareholders, stakeholders. Set up government-led programs. It has to be top-down and bottom-up together. And it doesn't necessarily have to meet in the middle. We're not on a journey to reach something. We're on a journey because we're traveling. It's not the destination that we're looking for. It's the learning point as we move along. There's no end to a smart city, right? It's not a purchase order that you can give to Huawei or NTT or Dell or who have you and say, here is my 100 million, you got 5 years and build me a smart city. And then after 5 years, thank you very much, now I got it. Smart cities are transforming and move along the way. Start up with test programs, not proof of concepts, proof of value. What is the value that the initiative for digital transformation can bring to an area of your city, or a part of your city, or maybe even the city as a whole? And use that to leverage, to learn, and to add more building blocks, and make that cube out of a 3x3, maybe a 5x5 or a 10x10. Because it is built on a framework where each piece can move independently without breaking that structure. So back to the cube. What if this cube visualizes one city? With all these building blocks that are the different parties, the different pieces that work together independently, each with their own unique characteristics, and they can move independently without breaking up the structure. We have a saying that says, one smart city is not a smart city. Every smart city, every building block is part of a bigger whole. A network of smart cities, of course, creates a smart nation. The nation is attached to border countries. Border countries are part of a region. The region is part of a continent. The continent is part of the world. Earth is part of the universe. We're all part of this framework. All of us are an individual piece, and we all move independently without breaking this structure. But still, we need a starting point, and the starting point is here. The starting point is you and me and all of us as we go forward in digital transformation. So, if you like this as a color scheme, then don't change the color. Just make it work. If you're very keen in having colors, then you can move all these pieces independently, and you can make them work in such a way that it creates what the Rubik's Cube started from. There is no such thing as messing up a Rubik's Cube. This color scheme, to me, looks just as interesting as this one. Nevertheless, thank you for your attention.
Thank you very, very much. Both Bill and Edwin have given us a great idea, great informative presentations about what your work is and how you are really helping people on their digital transformation journey. Bill, it was wonderful to hear a deep dive into what's happening in Las Vegas, how you're harnessing data, using tools, and actually helping people to make a profit and to point in the direction of ROI and making money. Edwin, fabulous presentation on, especially on the symbology and the need for platforms and an approach that is very conceptual but also very realistic. I think in both instances we were able to see how using data and using the technology helps answer the question that we hear all the time, which is, where do we start? With so much data, so much technology available, people don't know where to start. They're overwhelmed. And I think that you've thrown us a lifeline, you've thrown us a line to help us to start and to get over that first step of what to do, and to the fear of being irrevocably committed to a course of action without having done that first analytical step. So thank you for helping us identify that first analytical step to create platforms, to create symbols, to create visualizations, and the tools that help us to move forward. So with that, we'd like to take a short 15-minute break and reconvene here in 15 minutes. See you later. Thank you.
This is my 9th year in this event. Isn't this an amazing event? I mean, every year we think it's getting better, and wow. Thank you, FIRA. Thank you, Smart City World Congress. Today we're going to talk about data. Data streaming, data collection, data visualization. And I have the honor of hosting an amazing panel made of 3 people. Can you go back, please, one slide? Unfortunately, Gary couldn't make it, but we do have, and who's going to join me on the stage here, Martin Skjold-Gronveld. I hope I pronounced it right. Please join us. He's from the Danish Agency for Data. We have Belinda Chen, who serves as a project leader in Taiwan government. and Meredith Hodges, who works for Women in Smart Cities Global Association. Please join us. I'm going to take 5 minutes to introduce the session and introduce myself. I come from a company called NVIDIA. Who knows NVIDIA? And who knows about NVIDIA and artificial intelligence? Okay, so I have the lucky job of running something called AI City, and I'll talk a little bit about it. But before we do that, let me introduce the context of our panel. 20 years ago, actually, exactly, a gentleman, I think his name is Kevin Ashton, codenamed the term IoT, Internet of Things. And he predicted that the world is going to turn into data. 20 years later, that's what's happening. That's what we term the datafication. And when I was invited to this panel, I was asked to kind of talk about the data with an amazing group of people. So I thought, what's happening in the world of data for the last 20 years that I've been involved in this debate? So I created this graph after talking to Cornelia, and this is my view in the last 20 years, and I hope where I was around, and I hope in the next 20 years I'll be around to see what's going to happen. But it all started, if you all remember, we had tons of PCs at home, and we have the dial-up modem. That was the beginning of data. And then what happened after is we started seeing connectivity spreading, becoming ubiquitous. 2G, 3G, 4G, now 5G, Wi-Fi, hotspot, all of it. So you had internet access, you had connectivity wherever you are. And that was, for those who are young enough, like me, you remember before that, that was not possible. You had to go travel to an office or a specific place to connect. And that's important. Why? Because when we had connectivity becoming ubiquitous, we started seeing what we call digitization, which means companies that has nothing to do with connectivity, they have product in the field, they started making their product IP-enabled, connected product. And we had an attack of connected product without knowing what to do with that. That was a good start, because when mobile became in the hand of everyone, we started seeing connectivity spreading in the field, on the street. We started seeing what we call the smartness. And what I mean by that is operational technology companies, companies that have devices in the field, power control, gates, cameras, barriers, are trying to expose their data, cameras exposing their data to the top floor, to the management, so they can query the device, because the device now is connected. And we started seeing the IT guys trying to reach down to the bottom, to the devices in the field. And that IT top-down and OT bottom-up, we start seeing IoT becoming a reality, and we started seeing the full value stack of IoT solutions, which spread like fire. And we have them around everywhere. Monitoring waste, monitoring fire, counting cars, and so on. Because connectivity was possible, sensors became ubiquitous. Then we came to cloud. Cloud became affordable and available to everyone. And the cloud kind of transformed the market, and then we started seeing what we know, the big data, the datafication. This is when data exploded. So far, we've been in the process heavily of collecting data. And usually between every dot, there's around 2 to 3 years, based on my count. Now, what datafication did is we started saying, okay, we had the debate, smart data, stupid data, useful data, not useful data, what do we collect? Bottom line is we started unearthing value out of this data until we started throwing data analysts. Usually for every amount of data in our world, we count how many data analysts you need. But when the data started exponentially growing, we realized that we cannot throw enough body count behind the data. It's not sustainable, right? Because it's growing exponentially. So if you have a command and control center monitoring, let's say, 100 cameras, usually a rule of thumb, you needed 5 people monitoring this. What if you have 100,000? The same formula will apply to scale people. It's not doable. Now, luckily, this is when AI became affordable, democratized, which I'm going to talk about quickly. And this is where now AI is promising to unearth that value, to deliver the value. Because what used to be a human-driven data value creation now is being automated, right? So this is my personal view of how I see the data migration in the last 20 years. What's happened from now forward? Stick around, we will find out. But there's a lot of exciting stuff. Now, 2 words about NVIDIA. Since you know NVIDIA, just quickly, we come from the graphic world, and we moved 9 years ago into AI, and we are now the #1 AI platform provider. If you're driving an autonomous car, inside it there is an NVIDIA enabler, an AI that is helping. If you're Googling or using Netflix to search your favorite, there's an AI. If you're playing a game, so we're an invisible enabler, and I'll talk about how we come into this market. I focus on one vertical. In AI, we go by market, and my focus is cities, which means safety, security, transportation, industrial, retail, and stuff like that. When we see there is a billion camera in the market, we realize that that's the biggest IoT existing today deployment in the field. 1 billion devices are in the field. Yet, we record a lot of video and we store it. So, we go to it after effect. Why? Because it's not sustainable to have an amount of people, body counts, behind watching the videos non-stop. So we go after effect in a reactive way to solve a problem. But today, we have the ability to leverage the sensor, which can do a lot of things, and I'm going to talk quickly about it. But we had to create an architecture that enables the market. So we're an ecosystem driven. All we do is we create a platform that allows all these companies and startups to develop the value using AI. And we use the term democratizing AI. This is the architecture, and I'm not going to dwell on it, but you could take a look quick on it. Basically, what we're saying is obviously, we need the large players, the OEMs, the Dells, the Huawei of the world, all of them, we put our chipset inside, and we offer a software stack that allows the application layer, the people that develop the application, to benefit from AI. And as a consequence, we created an ecosystem, and I'm going to focus on the top layer, where we have around 100 companies. They are developing what I call the secret sauce. Basically, they're doing inferencing on the edge. They're delivering the magic that you saw in some of the presentation before from Bill, and especially Bill when he talked about Las Vegas. So these cameras can be trained using AI to detect. Let's take an example. All right. Smart Cow or Viva City, they developed a smart camera that you put it on intersection that detects all moving objects, humans, classify them, and they reach the ability to predict traffic before time, 30 minutes before time. What can you do with this? Well, first of all, this is a replacement to the old school induction loop, if you heard the term, counting, you see those cables on the road, the counting cars. Now you have a camera that's counting this 24/7, 365 days a year, and at an accuracy that is 98%, whereas induction loop at best gets you 70% accuracy. More important, when you have enough data, you can predict the traffic behavior 30 minutes before it happened. If you connect it to the traffic lights, I let you imagine what you can do. That's not a PowerPoint. That's a project in Milton Keynes in the UK and a few others. This is a real deployment. Helmetless driver. You can train the camera to tell you that biker is without a helmet, right? You saw on the previous slide with Bill, you can detect the car turning in the wrong way at a high speed, and so on and so forth. The examples can go on forever. So this is a reality today, how people are collecting data and manipulating data and presenting data to value. With that in mind, I'm going to ask my first speaker, Martin, to give us his speech.
Thank you all. Do you hear me? I'd go froze. So I'm Martin Grønvold. I'm a business developer for the Agency for Data Supply and Efficiency, and I'm going to provide you with a something called TAPAS, which stands for Test Bed in Aarhus for Precise Positioning and Autonomous System. It's not something you can eat, but it's an open research and development platform, so therefore very relevant to all of you for how to develop all these nice solutions we have by focusing on high quality in positioning data. And through this infrastructure, you'll be able to enhance the quality of satellite navigation signals so you can obtain a position of 1 centimeter while you're moving in a dense populated urban area. It is a partnership that is created between us, which is a state government agency, then the city of Aarhus, which is the second biggest city in Denmark, and the DTU Space Department, which is, let's call it similar to Stanford in Denmark. Why is this accurate position at least relevant for us? When we are here, we have geographical data of static elements, and we have really high quality of that. We have that for many years. We have maps. When we're talking about cameras, for example, we have static cameras that will be placed at the place where it's know where it is in this field. What we knew have through the GPS system, we had that we could move around and in real time get another kind of data that we could use moving around, for example, to find the restaurant that we're looking for. And I think that everybody will use at least the route planning once per day. It's also in other applications, such as dating apps today, but also in, for example, augmented reality with Pokemon Go. While we have the dynamic data, we move from a stationary to a dynamic world, which brings new opportunities for using technologies such as AI, but also having objects moving around us like an autonomous car or robot. Why is it that we are creating and think that it's an interesting element to go into to a research and development project within this? We have new societal changes and demands. We have a climate crisis that creates a lot of pressure on us. In Denmark, we have to decrease our greenhouse emissions by 70% by 2030. While we're doing that, we're going to have an aging population, and we're going to have almost the same budget to produce the same welfare from the government. So we need to do more things a lot more efficient and sustainable. While we're having the same, we have exponential development within applications that we can use for it. Prices for sensors that can obtain accurate positioning has gone from being a massive place, a massive equipment. 10 years ago that cost $20,000. Well, now you have a small sensor and antenna that will cost you around $200. So we're going to have a lot of new opportunities for going into this. And if we look at the data and the opportunities, the higher the accuracy, the more possibilities we can build upon this. It's deriving from space infrastructure, where there's also a lot of new things happening. To obtain a positioning through satellite navigation, you need to have access to 4 satellites. The higher amount of satellites you receive data from, the better the accuracy you'll get. We are having a Chinese constellation called Baidu coming up, and at the same time we also have a European system called Galileo. Galileo is providing new opportunity as well, as it has authentication signals for civil users, and it will provide you with a game-changing service, high accuracy service from next year already that will provide you with at least 20 centimeters in accuracy on a global scale for free. Urban areas are though a quite difficult area to obtain satellite navigation due to especially that the signals will reflect on buildings and other kind of activity that goes on in a city. This is why that if you build a dense network of, let's call them antennas, base stations, you will be able to calculate errors in the satellite system as they go through the atmosphere or reflect on buildings, and provide the user with an opportunity to obtain a centimeter accuracy here of 1 centimeter while you move around in a densely populated area. This is Aarhus, the second biggest city of Denmark, which is the test place for this. And you will be able to have a lot of different applications that will be using this. The real big part of this is to collect all the actors, as we think, to see if you get 1 centimeter of dynamic accuracy, what kind of applications can you envision and to start cooperating with the relevant users. We need authorities, we also need companies, and we need the research institutions to cooperate on creating solutions for the smart city, which is why we're here today. We think the accurate positioning is this key feature, and we would like to simulate a future where we think that a lot of more applications will need centimeter level accuracy. This can be within smart city application, but also when we talk about camera. If we're gonna use drones that are flying, that has cameras, they need to have a super high accuracy to provide a good quality of data in the camera. It's easy to know where you are. If you have a camera which is based in the same place as it knows where it is, it can relate to what it sees. But if you're moving around, you need to have this sort of data in order to have good quality in the camera. While we are going into new area of digital transformation, we are also going to see new problems. What kind of new ways are we going to have the infrastructure for the future? Satellite signals are not working indoor, but if we need to have centimeter accuracy for applications, we also need to figure out how can we create this seamless transition between outdoor navigation and indoor navigation. This could be in cooperation with synergies such as 5G, which is one of the big elements that we're looking into, but it could also be Wi-Fi or other relevant data sources. Cybersecurity, if we're going to have robots and cars moving in our society, how are we going to make sure that the infrastructure and at least the public data that we will provide is secure, so we at least you can always trust this element and you can make sure that it's not manipulated. We're going to have a digital transformation and we're going to need to have a lot of debate about it. We have a real life test laboratory for all kind of interested parties that will come, provide some kind of test or pilot that you can envision. But these results are very important as well to see how are we going to make the public strategies of the future and the regulations. Like an autonomous car probably not need to have the same regulation as a car of today. So we need to use the test result from the technological development as well to provide a good feedback to our policymakers to produce relevant policies that can include the technological developments we're facing. How are you going to use the tapas? I suppose that the most important thing of this is to get the great idea. This is an ideation project where we can provide you with free access to data. You can contact us, it will be free for you to go there, and we will help you to get in touch with the partners that you would be interested in partnering up with. You need so far a double frequency receiver with internet access. They come quite cheap today, but will still cost around $200, or are small enough to be placed on a drone, or for example on e-scooters, which we're trying to do. Then we need to sign a user agreement, and we have to get you to Aarhus to test the results. This is not the most expensive infrastructure, so this is not unique for Aarhus. This is something you can build up as well, which is why that we would like to have a lot of interest in this from the from outside of Denmark, because how are we going to build the static infrastructure that will provide us with the relevant data of the future? This can be tested in this real-life laboratory, but the results will be able to be moved to anywhere in the world as satellite navigation signals are global. And that was it for me.
All right.
Very on time. Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. My name is Belinda Chen. I come from Institute for Information Industry in Taipei, Taiwan. And in the second part of our panel, I'm going to introduce smart digital transformation in a different scenario, which is in science parks in Taiwan. So what makes it important for science parks in Taiwan? Driven by the government initiatives, there are 3 science parks in Hsinchu, and the Taichung, and the Tainan, which is located in the northern, middle, and the south part of Taiwan. And I think many of you have visited Taiwan, and probably in your business trip, you will go to one of these 3 science parks. Because the 3 science parks, the annual revenue of these 3 science parks is account for about $83 billion. So it's a big driving force and the major manufacturing hub for Taiwanese companies, such as for semiconductor companies and a lot of 3C products, photoelectronic products, biotech companies. They are all based in one of these 3 science parks. However, we do have a lot of challenges that have been occurring along with the digital transformation when the digital transformation comes, because there are more and more employees in the science parks, and which create a lot of problems such as traffic congestion, air pollution, and how to make the science park more sustainable for the next 30 years, which is a major concern of our policymakers. Therefore, we have come up with 4-year projects starting from the year of 2015. The concern of the initiative is to establish smart transportation solutions, smart disaster prevention, and smart governance solutions for these 3 science parks. And how are we going to do this? First of all, we have established the digital data platform for these 3 science parks. And in this data platform, we have collected all sorts of different data from sensors and from human behaviors, and also from a lot of mobile devices as well. In the next few slides, I'm going to give a short overview of our smart solutions that has been major focuses of these projects. The first one is the smart transportation solutions. As we have a big crowd coming to work every day, which has created big problems for parking as well. Therefore, we have encouraged the workers in the science parks to use more public transportation. Therefore, we have created science park mobile apps and introduced electronic buses with demand response transport systems in it, which will increase the efficiency for the bus users. And also, for the drivers, a lot of intelligent parking system and guiding system has been established in these science parks as well. And the second one is we have smart disaster prevention solutions. As there's about 4 years ago, there's a big earthquake in the southern part of Taiwan, and it's caused a big loss for the companies in Tainan Science Park. Therefore, we have started to implement the alert system for earthquake early warning and disaster prevention and relief systems in the science park. And for smart governance solutions, we also has introduced a lot of IoT environmental monitoring systems, such as we have real-time information billboards and the dashboard for the policymakers in order for the managers in the science park to make a best decision how to increase the efficiency of these science parks. And then also we have created 3D maps for the science parks. In case there's some emergency happens, the emergency group will be knowing how to get to the spot as soon as possible. So this is some of the achievements of our solutions. After we have introduced the solutions into the science parks, the commuting time has been reduced by 15%. And usually, before that, there's a lot of complaints about the traffic congestion like every day from the employees, and now the complaints has been decreased by 20%, which makes the managers of the science park, they are very happy about it. And also, for the drivers, they can find a parking space easily, and when they go out, in and out of the parking space, it takes less than 3 seconds, which is quite efficient as well. And for the smart disaster prevention solutions, we have built an international level earthquake warning systems into the southern part of the science park. And so far, I think because we don't want any natural disaster happens again, and the maximum earthquake magnitude can be estimated 3 seconds before it happens, and which allows the manufacturers, they can do something right away, such as they can shut down their machine or their some very important facilities that will be protected. And for the smart governance solutions, air quality monitoring and weather monitoring systems has been very important prospects to monitor the concentration of PM10, PM2.5, and SO2, those kind of hazardous waste. And our project has been recognized by some of the international awards, such as in APEC, Sustainable Community Awards in the year of 2017, and last year, we have been awarded by a British Safety Council and International Safety Awards as well. Okay, this is introduction of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hello. Can everyone hear me now? Okay, wonderful. So welcome to the last day of the expo today. This day always makes me a little bit sad. You see everybody bring out their luggage, and you can get a feel for who packs light and who doesn't pack very well. And when you've travelled from halfway across the other side of the world to be here, it's always a little bit sad to start to think about saying goodbye. And so with that in mind, I wanted to reflect on how much I've enjoyed the theme of this year's conference. And today I'm going to offer a slightly different slant to the technical geniuses that have shared this podium with me. I am not a technical expert, but I do have a fresh way of looking at the conversation for today that I want to tie back to the theme of the City of Dreams, which I'm not sure if it's coincidence or not, is actually very closely aligned to Cordelia's book as well. So I want to think about data, and I want to think about the platforms and the way that we're using them with a little bit of a blue sky a look there. So hi, I'm Meredith Hodges. I am here today speaking to you as the co-founder and international director of the Women in Smart Cities Global Movement. We're a not-for-profit group. We are a group of about 200 senior decision makers, experts, and emerging leaders from around the world who stand for diversity, who stand for advocacy around design, stakeholder engagement, and the professional development of women in the smart cities sector. And I am also the chair of the Internet of Things Alliance, Australia's Smart Cities work stream. So I've not given this presentation before, so please bear with me as I go through it here today. What are the two common things about my two roles are really that I spend a lot of time thinking about and how to catalyse and scale IoT or smart cities at a national level and a global level in many instances to be able to deliver the outcomes that we want, the social outcomes that we want. So for women in smart cities, that's really important because while we are a group of women, we stand for diversity, equity and inclusion. It's not just a gender topic for us. It's not just about vendors, supply and demand in the IoT space. It's about doing IoT for good, right? So we need the data to be able to do that. We need to have the evidence to be doing the best policy decisions that we can. So I would like to pause for a moment and get a little bit of a show of hands. Who here in the room is from the private sector? That's a little bit less than half. So the public sector, look at that. Okay, great. So that means that a lot of people in this room have probably spent a fair bit of their time thinking about how to design their policies and programs with the evidence and the data that we have available. Maybe sat there, waited for 3 years for the census data to come out to either check to see if the programs that you've just been writing were actually on target, measure the programs that you did, or heaven forbid even use the data that comes out of the census or the data that we have inside of the government to be able to design meaningful programs that will help drive the agenda of the day. It's a big challenge, it's a big feat, and I guess the proposition that I want to talk through a little bit today is around how could we potentially do that a little bit better. We know that the private sector has amazing data information. It's no secret that the government no longer has the best data and the information that's out there. Perhaps I'm talking a little bit more at the local government scale here, I might suggest, and with my two colleagues here from some amazingly technical government entities. I don't want to downplay that at all. That's fantastic information there. Go to Aarhus, it's amazing. But I do want to offer 3 different ways that potentially we could start as governments to modernise the way that we are thinking about our approach to data, the way that we're collecting, communicating and crunching it. So here's the first one, and that is that I think that it's time for us to start to ask better questions. We so often are sitting there with data and we might have asked that question 3 years ago. We might be using that data to design something that's for everybody, but the data set that we're looking at doesn't actually include a full representative section of our citizens. A good example of that is, of course, women. An amazing member of ours was talking to me earlier this week. She presented this week. Her name is Ines. She's from Madrid. And she talked about how the notion of the commute is actually a gendered notion because the historical data around our commute patterns has been so incredibly dominated by gender, and that when women are commuting to work more often than not, they're doing things like going to the supermarket and also going to the kids. So this lineal commute is actually only got some data sets that are, quite gendered. But it happens in another way. It happens in other ways as well. So the thing is that when we are designing our questions and we're going out there and we're gathering our evidence and we're looking for our data inputs, can we think a little bit better? Can we ask better questions to be able to ensure that the data that we gather can be used not just for the project that we want right now, but for the project that we might need in, say, 2 years or 3 years, hopefully not 3 years, but that we're thinking a little bit broader. Are we asking the right questions? Are we asking the best questions when we're trying to look for those data inputs? Okay, so the second way that I think that the public sector could be better improving their approach to data is really, really simple, and I'm not going to spend much time on it here today because we all know that in smart cities we need to be better, we have great public-private partnerships and we look at sector convergence to find the data and information that we need to collaborate from non-competitive partners. So, excuse me, I'm going to grab a glass of water. That could very well be, that's not my glass. Thank you. That could very well be public transport information that's going to help the health sector. That could be insurance data that might help us better understand the land value capture. It goes on and on. Smart cities is a fantastic example of sector convergence. Our partners and those data inputs are usually hiding in plain sight. They're sitting right next to us. We might not necessarily have the same vision, mission and objectives in our corporate plans, but actually we're here for the same reason, which is to design the cities of our dreams and the cities of the future. So the third thing that I think that the private sector needs to do to better design our approach to data and scalability of data is our own digital literacy in the public sector. We need to better learn how to drive. Particularly at the local government level, I would say, where we have an amazing amount of really passionate social workers and really passionate people who might be in libraries and they're interfacing with the citizens all the time. It's no longer the case that only our CIOs and our CTOs and our data teams need to know how to use data and what to do with that data. This is the only slide I'm going to show you today with numbers. So this is the Queensland local government digital productivity report, which apparently had a really amazing uptake, like something like 80 or 90% of the councils that they surveyed actually all responded, which is quite a feat in itself. And you can see up here that 88% of councils think that, that they're out there collecting data. And you can see 82% of councils have, or they're thinking about having some management plans for how they can scale that data. And 85% of them agree that the digital economy is a good thing. But actually only 48% of them are using data in to inform their decision-making in their policy processes. So I think we really need to ask ourselves why. Are we giving them the skills that they need to be able to use that data that we have? How are we going to start thinking about that capability and that capacity within our local governments and our city councils to be able to drive that across? The other thing I wanted to call out here is that this is the most recent report on this that's available, and it's a 2017 report. So this is what I mean about asking better questions and asking them in a timely fashion. So this data, it's already out of date. So we can't rely on our census information anymore. We have to be a little bit creative. We have to think outside the box. But it's not just about having the skills within our public sector and teaching them how to use the sophisticated technologies and how to choose different operating systems that are going to meet all the technical business requirements. It's also about training the different types of people within our governments who don't necessarily have a role that they think is traditionally as a data role. So it's about that capacity. And yes, I'm looking to see if anyone here picked out my dad joke, and I don't think anybody did. So clearly, we need to start looking at the capacity of our cities. So just a very quick recap there. We want to ask better questions. We'd like to have much stronger multi-stakeholder partnerships, not just one-on-ones, but like collaborative consortiums. And we also want to make sure that we're thinking about the digital literacy of our public sector, which will help inform not just our data collation, but then how we're scaling that information and driving the insights that we need to be able to think about the future. But the thing is, we can collect it and we can communicate it, but when it comes down to the crunch, it's still not going to be enough. The problems that we are facing are so big and they are so structurally different from anything else that we've ever faced before. So is this really going to cut it? And the answer is no, it's just not. And as we have touched on today earlier with Charbelle's presentation in particular, moving towards the AI and those predictive insights is just absolutely critical. So we're here today to think about platforms, right? So I would ask this room, when you're choosing your data sources and when you're potentially selecting partners or you're looking at the different platforms that you need, are these platforms agile enough to grow with us? Are they powerful enough to help us to predict the insights that we need to design the policies and programs for the future? And the reason that that's important, the reason why I started this out by saying just data, is this notion of a just transition. We are sitting here today dreaming about the cities of the future, but we can't leave people behind. We can't leave pockets of society, vulnerable communities, or any one individual. So our data needs to be structured in a way that is flexible and dynamic and principles-based. That's not locked in by really prescriptive tick the boxes. I love this picture. This is not a Photoshop. This is one community. There is a road down the bottom that connects, where is a nice, beautiful suburb next to a slum. Our problems of our inequality and our affordability are not going away. The one constant that we have is that change is coming and it's changing faster. So how can we structure that data so that it too can be nimble to help us move forward? How about our other vulnerable groups? This is an Aboriginal community in Australia, a First Nations community. How are we getting information and data on people that fundamentally don't participate in the digital economy, that they don't have iPhones and cell phones? They're not providing evidence that we are all using to design our policies and programs for the future. And this is the last one, and this is my favourite one. It's my biggest passion at the moment, and it's about the skills. Where are we getting our data from to help us define and understand and predict the skills that are needed for the workforce of the future? So you can upskill the government in digital literacy. We can have focus on our multi-stakeholder partnerships, and we can get data sources from the public and the private sector. We can start to ask better questions, but at the end of the day, I'd like to put to this room that it comes down to a principles-based approach to thinking about what are the outcomes that we want to achieve and how are we going to use this data for good. So, very short. Oh, I didn't. I actually went over, Charbelle, and my apologies. But there you are. That's the proposition for today. Oops.
I was going to shuffle a little bit. So, Cornelia, please, can you come have a seat? And Edwin and Bill, can you come stand next to me? That's creative. So I'm going to ask some questions, but you're going to have maximum 1 minute to answer, none more. Let's be creative here. All right, so let's start with Martin. So what are the biggest barriers that you are facing in order to maximize the potential of using high accuracy applications in our cities? What is it from your experience? We gained a few minutes, so we're okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I would say that a lot of the things is cultural. It's the understanding of the concept of what the technological developments can do. How do we want to use it? If a robot can do some of the work that we're used to, how do we envision that we would use it in our public sector, especially? How is the infrastructure in general? Like we have roads right now, but the technology makes that we could maybe design the world in a different way in the future. And I think our legal system could as well be changed a lot. So I think the biggest challenge is the idea and the concept of how to use this very accurate and dynamic data source.
Edwin, let's go to you. So, if we're not a smart city, does it mean are we a dumb city?
I hope this is working. If we're not a smart city, are we then a dumb city? Well, on a personal note, I guess that's correct. On a professional note, of course not. Of course not. How could you even think that? Where is that coming from? No, I think we should talk about intelligent cities, intelligent connectivity, optimization of connections, all this thing about data, platforms that deal with data, have a huge amount of information inside that can be translated and transformed into insight. I think that's very intelligent. There's nothing smart about it, I would say. So professionally speaking, no. If there's a smart city, which every city is, then let's embark on the road to digital transformation and turn it into information into insight. That would be an intelligent way of doing it.
Thank you. Belinda, I'm going to go to you. I mean, it's an amazing project, yet I know that you've done a great job in 9 minutes to do that. But
Thanks.
What would you say would be the most valuable impact that have been recognized in your project?
I think for the science park scenario, which is quite special for a smart city, and the value of our projects is we will be able to help the governors to decide what kind of data that should be collected in the science park and in what format and in what frequency. As we all have known, it might not that difficult to establish a data platform. However, after that, you have to maintain the data, and it costs a lot. And in these projects, we have come up some protocols and or some guidelines that we know which kind of data that we should keep and for what frequency and in what formats, which is kind of very valuable for the policy makers.
All right, thank you. Bill, I have a question for you. Share with us, how do you monetize data?
So for monetizing data, it's really not about, well, first it's about the city owns the data. So it's the city that's going to monetize it, not any private entity in any way. So if the city looks at how to use that data in an anonymous form to give insights to retailers or to give insight to other entities within the city, such as the crowd is leaving a concert event, they could now have ads that, and what the size of the crowd is, what time it is, where they're going, what location they're going to. They could have digital signage that starts to be reverse auctioned from the restaurants or the retailers to say, here's an ad for a 2-for-1 meal special, a happy hour special, or things like that. That's just one example of how cities are starting to say, we need to make data valuable to us, because then that turns it into money that I can then use other ways for innovation. So that's just one example that comes out there.
Thank you. Meredith, I mean, it's an interesting approach you're coming to data. So tell me, have you data solutions here this week that can help accelerate a just and fair transition?
This week here at the Expo, yes, I really loved walking around the floor. But I would say that I also really liked just hearing Bill's response there around where does the money go in terms of the data. So if we're looking at a just transition, I'm inspired by solutions that put something back into the community. And if that's the city's role, then that's great. But if it could be I mean, it could be a private sector that chooses to put something back into the community themselves as well. I really like the platforms that allow for co-design, that aren't really prescriptive, that say, okay, we've got this lake, pond, bucket of data, you've got that, let's build this platform that's a co-design approach. And I was also really inspired and excited to see that the Sharing Cities Alliance, which I saw last year, it was a little bit smaller, and this year it's grown so much. And they have principles. So, I mean, as you know, I'm very passionate about principles-based design, not prescriptive-based design. And I think that the principles that they have, from what little I know of it, are adventurous enough, and they have enough vision to really drive progress. But at the same time, they are palatable enough that we can get them through our political systems, and pragmatic enough that they can be meaningful to the private sector.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to start from there all the way here and then hand it back to Cornelia. Cornelia, get ready. Your question after the nuggets of wisdom. So give me a nugget of wisdom out of this session today that you leave here with and you want people to leave here. And Cornelia, I want you to tell us at the end, I know you've been listening and taking notes of every single speaker. What did you find out from this session? What are the key highlights?
Well, first of all, I thought there was an immensely interesting, data-rich keynote address by both keynotes, Edwin and Bill. And we really saw how to harness data and how to use technology to create practical examples from the sign in Las Vegas down to all of the layers that are, and the Rubik's Cube in the Huawei examples. The discussion afterwards was a great wrap-up and a segue, a sequel to what was the first part. And I want to thank you very much, Arbel, for giving us a little bit of a history of connectivity. How in the beginning we all thought it was about connecting devices, and then we had the PC and the internet and the cloud and the AI and more and more and more and more data, and finally now we're ending up with Industry 4.0. So that was a great framework to set up the whole second section. And then, thank you, Martin, you took us up to the sky from the global satellite position, and how we can even collect data from the very tiniest piece of the Earth through this from the sky. Amazing! It really is mind exploring. And thank you so much, Belinda, because you really gave us a history of, you know, struggle and earthquakes and traumas and crises in Taiwan, and how you've done so much to overcome that. It was very, very inspiring, and you're so hard at work and busy doing everything you can to create smart cities. It's a very, very inspiring story. And Meredith, thank you for your new approaches and all your new ideas. Very fresh insight into new ways of thinking about things. Thank you all so much. Great.
Thank you, Cornelia. 30 seconds each, nuggets of wisdom.
So I think the nugget is really, Meredith, where you were going. What is it for a citizen? What does it do? And get a data story that's out there. And the wisdom is get a data story and put it in a data platform and bring it out to make insights and enrich the city and the citizens as they go forward.
Thank you.
We've talked about inclusion. Meredith did, actually. I talked about tech for all, social inclusion, urban safety. I think two things. First, safe, then smart, because a smart city is not safe if it's not smart, and a smart city is not smart if it's not safe. And the second one would be diversity. We need more diversity in this already tech-driven industry.
How to make data smart? I think it's our mission in the next stage.
Thank you.
I would say things work the best when there's cooperation between the citizens, residents of the cities, the governments, and the suppliers and vendors. When those three pieces, those 3 points of the triangle come together and collaborate, it's a winning combination.
Okay. Martin?
Yeah, the technology has great potentials, and we should start to have a new way of thinking how it can enhance our cities and enhance our lives the way we would like to.
I would say trust. The amazing advances in technology, the way we're looking about safety and security, particularly at the national security level, but also at the disaster and the resilience level. And as we better communicate between both the technical side and bring up that capability uplift within certainly the public side as well, that we could be delivering cities that offer a new world of trust for our citizens.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting this non-traditional way of crowding the stage, but I felt that having the first three speakers was important. Thank you for being patient. Have a great day. Thank you.